The first snow hadn't fallen yet, but the sky above Kansas was already the color of steel when Maggie Porter decided she couldn't spend another Christmas alone. She stood at the kitchen window, staring at the frost spreading across the glass like tiny white rivers. The coffee in her mug had gone cold. Behind her, the old clock ticked loudly, a sound too steady for a house that had forgotten laughter. On the counter lay a postcard she'd been meaning to mail for months. A picture of Monument Valley. On the back, she'd written only 5 words. Miss you. Please call. Mom. She hadn't mailed it. She wasn't even sure where her daughter, Riley, lived now. All she knew was that Riley had left 3 years ago, a shouting match, a slammed door, and a suitcase disappearing into the night. They hadn't spoken since. That night, Maggie found herself sitting in her late husband's old truck, keys trembling in her hand. Bill, she whispered to the photo clipped to the dashboard, you tell me I'm crazy. She smiled weakly. Maybe I am. The engine coughed to life, headlights cutting through the darkness. She didn't have a plan, just a name, a memory, and an ache too heavy to carry anymore. Riley Porter was 26 and restless. She lived in Denver now, sharing a 1-bedroom apartment with her best friend, Zara, working as a photographer for a small magazine that never paid enough. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number as she packed for a weekend shoot. Hello. Riley? There was a pause. It's your mom. Riley froze. Mom? Yeah. Hey, sweetheart. The word sweetheart felt foreign now. Sharp. What's wrong? Nothing. I just thought maybe we could talk. Riley laughed bitterly. After 3 years? I know. I messed up. But maybe we could try again. Just once. Silence. Then Riley sighed. What do you want, Mom? I'm driving to California. Your dad always wanted to see the Pacific. Thought maybe you could come with me. Just one last road trip. Riley hesitated. Why now? Because if I don't do it now, Maggie said softly, I never will. Riley almost said no. But something in her mother's voice, fragile, scared, broke the wall she'd built. Fine, she muttered. I'll meet you halfway. Halfway. Yeah. Santa Fe. Saturday morning. Don't be late. Maggie smiled through tears. I won't. The drive from Kansas to New Mexico took 2 days. Maggie stopped at dusty diners and cheap motels, eating blueberry pie at every stop because it was her favorite and because she couldn't remember the last time she'd let herself enjoy anything. She hummed along to the radio, though the songs made her cry. By the time she reached Santa Fe, her hands ached from holding the wheel too tight. Then, at a gas station on the outskirts of town, she saw her, Riley, leaning against a silver Jeep, camera slung around her neck, hair shorter than before, smile guarded. Maggie almost didn't recognize her own daughter. Hey, Maggie said softly, stepping out of the truck. Riley crossed her arms. Hey. They stood there for a long moment, the kind of silence that comes with years of words unsaid. Finally, Maggie nodded toward the truck. You ready? Riley hesitated. Then, with a sigh, yeah, let's go. The first few hours were awkward. They talked about traffic, gas prices, weather, everything except what mattered. Riley kept her headphones in half the time. Maggie drove in silence. But by the time they crossed into Arizona, something began to shift. Riley rolled down her window. God, look at that sky. Maggie smiled. Your dad used to say sunsets out west looked like God spilled his paintbrush. Riley chuckled. He would say that. And just like that, for a brief, fragile moment, they were both smiling at the same memory. They stopped for lunch at a roadside diner. The waitress had gray hair and too much eyeliner. She called everyone Han and filled their cups before they were empty. Riley took pictures of the neon signs outside. Maggie watched her, amazed by how easily she found beauty in broken places. You always did love capturing things, Maggie said. Riley shrugged. At least pictures don't leave. The words hung heavy between them. Maggie lowered her gaze. I deserve that. Riley sighed. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, Maggie said quietly. And you're right. That night, they stayed in a small motel outside Flagstaff. Maggie sat on the bed, flipping through one of Riley's photojournals. There were pictures of deserts, strangers, old motels, and one photo of a man sitting alone on a porch, light falling just right. "He looks like your father," Maggie murmured. Riley smiled faintly. "Yeah. I took that the day before he passed." "You never showed me these," Maggie said. "You never asked," Riley replied, her voice soft but steady. Maggie nodded. "You're right again." The next morning, they hit the road before sunrise. The highway stretched endless ahead of them, the air crisp with the promise of change. Somewhere between Needles and Barstow, Riley asked, "Why now, Mom?" Maggie kept her eyes on the road. "Because I'm tired of missing you." Riley's throat tightened. "You pushed me away." "I did," Maggie said. "When your dad died, I didn't know how to be a mom and be broken at the same time. So I chose the wrong thing. I shut down." "You didn't just shut down," Riley whispered. "You shut me out." Maggie nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Riley reached out, slow, hesitant, and turned up the radio. The song was an old country tune her father used to sing. And for the first time in years, they both sang along. They reached the Pacific 2 days later. It was early December. The ocean was gray and endless, the wind sharp with salt. They parked near a cliff outside Monterey, wrapped in blankets, sipping coffee from a thermos. "This is it," Maggie said softly. He always wanted to see this view. Riley took a picture. The waves crashed against the rocks, gulls crying overhead. "Guess we finally made it," she said. "Yeah," Maggie whispered. "All of us." She opened a small tin box and pulled out a handful of ashes. "Dad?" Riley asked, eyes widening. Maggie nodded. "I kept him with me. I wanted him to see the ocean too." Riley swallowed hard. Together, they stepped closer to the edge. The wind caught the ashes, scattering them into the waves. For a moment, the sunlight hit the water just right, a shimmer like silver fire. Riley whispered, "Goodbye, Dad." Maggie closed her eyes. "We'll miss you." They stayed until sunset. Maggie told stories about how she and Bill first met, about the road trips they took when Riley was little, about the dreams they never finished. Riley listened, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. When the sun dipped below the horizon, Riley said softly, "You know, I think he'd be proud of you." Maggie looked at her daughter, smiling through tears. "I'm proud of you." Riley hesitated, then leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "Thanks for not giving up on me," she whispered. Maggie kissed her hair. "Never again." The next morning, they drove south along the coast. The radio played softly. The windows were down. The air smelled like salt and new beginnings. At a red light, Riley turned to her mother. "So what now?" Maggie smiled. "Now we drive home. But maybe we take the long way." Riley grinned. "The long way sounds good." They laughed, real laughter this time, and when the light turned green, Maggie pressed her foot to the gas. The truck rolled forward, the ocean glittering beside them, the road stretching endlessly ahead, miles and miles of forgiveness, of second chances, of December sunlight. The end.